So further into our backswing segment here, we're going to talk a little bit about the rates at which you do things. So not the speed, just when something moves relative to something else. So we're going to start with the arms and the wrists. So as I take the club back, I can either make my arms travel or I can get my wrists to go, to hinge, to move back, whatever the word is. But I can't really do the arms and the wrists at the same time. So we have to kind of understand the rate there. We want to try and make sure that the rate that the wrists do their thing is at a higher rate than the arms traveling back. So we want to make sure that we can get this wrist action done fairly early. So one thing we can notice from this down the line view here is wherever the handle of the club starts, I want it to stay at that same height all the way back. And you'll notice that as I take this club back and I have what we commonly call the full hinge to the club right here, my hands are still below my belt. They're at about thigh level. So that's the first piece, trying to feel as though that the wrists can move a little bit independently of the arms to begin with. But once they've done their thing, they're kind of done. So the next piece of the puzzle is how the chest and the back moves, or shoulders, in relation to the arms. So one thing I've seen lately is golfers who try to get a full turn to their chest and they get a big turn and they extend a bunch and they get all this rotation happening, but all of that stuff happens really, really early. You can see that I've done a full turn with my body, but my arms haven't gone up and my wrists haven't gone up. So one thing that we can do to make sure that that happens is that if you're a golfer who makes the backswing with their arms first and then cranks up the chest, you get a bit of a better connection to things. If you're a golfer who doesn't have all of that rotation and you're simply swinging your arms back, you can see by the lack of shoulder turn that it hasn't quite moved as much. However, if you're one of those players that feels as though they need to make the full turn and then crank the arms up, what the weight of the arms and club do, or what it does, is it gets the arms and club heavy and it goes back and it actually gives us more turn and causes us to bounce out of it. So there's some sequence and some rhythm and some momentum issues when the arms and chest don't go back at the right rate. So what I'd like you to work on is try to feel as though that you can isolate these two pieces in that you've isolated the wrist action happening early. Notice how both of my arms are still facing the ground. And then from here I want to feel as though that I keep my chest down as my arms go up, creating some tightness in here. And then at the end of it all, I can get my shoulders back. And you can see right there that I maintained a pretty good structure to the whole thing. So this was a little bit more about the rate at which you do things. And it might feel different. In order to change your rates, you definitely have to change your speed and your tempo. If you go back the same way and the same speed, it's going to be the same thing. And that's something I think a lot of golfers struggle with, is understanding that if you're making a backswing change, it's the speed of it is going to feel totally different. You might feel like it's slower, no problem, but the speed at which you do things are going to be different. So keep that in mind as you work on your rates. We want the wrists to go back early, and then from there we want the arms to go up, keeping the chest down, and then the chest can go back and extend, all of that stuff to give us a really good looking picture at the top of the backswing. So focus on when you do things, and I think things are going to change. So ways to identify what you're doing. If we start here at the address position and you take it back through section 1 right here where the club's even with the ground, we want to see that the club head kind of hovers around the hands a little bit. Whether it's outside, no problem. Whether it's a little inside, no problem. If it's outside a lot, we might get a problem. And if it's inside a lot, where it goes kind of past your clothing line, your body lines, and it goes outside of that, that's not going to work too well either. So when the club gets even to the ground for the first time, we want to make sure that the hands are still low, the arms are long, and my hands are right here in front of my leg. That's the first piece. As you go up to the top of your backswing, from there, as I go up and get my arm even with the ground right here, I want to get to that position without having a full chest turn. If I did have a full chest turn like this, I wouldn't have any connection here between my chest and my arm. So I want it to feel as though that the wrists go first, the arms start to work up, and at the very end of the backswing is when the chest goes just a little bit. And I think that that's going to help get you to understand where pieces have to be. Club even with the ground, club head somewhere around the hands, hands right here by the leg, arm even with the ground, chest hasn't turned a whole lot, but that shaft, we don't want to have it too flat where it points outside the golf ball. I'd rather have it a little steeper where it points somewhere between the ball and my feet, somewhere like that. First step even with the ground, second step arm even with the ground, and I want that club to feel like it's a little steeper, just in a direction of where it's got to point down at the ball. I think that by looking at those pieces and being able to identify where you are here, and how you get to here is a big piece on how you can transition in the downswing into your finish. So those are the next segments to the backswing pieces, and the next video is going to talk a little bit more about each of those individual segments where things can go wrong. I hope